welcome back to another one of our Facebook Lives here at the Fort Worth Zoo. We're going to take just a second to let other people join on so that they can enjoy this live keeper chat along with you. All right, now that we have quite a few of you guys joined on with us, we are going to get started talking about one of everyone's favorite types of bird. You can see we are here at our African penguin habitat at the Fort Worth Zoo. And right now we actually have one of our awesome bird keepers, Jean, out here doing some feeding for you guys so you are able to see them up close and personal. Here at the Fort Worth Zoo, we have two different types of penguins. We have the African black-footed penguins that we are looking at right now. And then if you've ever been here, we have a penguin building where we have Rockhopper penguins inside. Those are the two different types of species that we have here. And I think it's important for us to talk about the two different types of species because, believe it or not, there are actually 17 different types of penguins found in the entire world. You might also be wondering, well, if we are talking about penguins, why are we outside? Why are we in a warmer temperatured area? Because penguins are cold-weathered birds, right? Actually, if you believe it or not, there are 4 species of penguin that are found on the continent of Antarctica, where it is going to be colder and icy and desolate, whereas 13 species of penguin are found where it is going to be a little bit warmer and it's going to be a different climate than that. It's important to talk about those 4 species that are found on Antarctica though, because a lot of times people associate penguins with Antarctica because that's what we see on the nature documentaries and movies and different types of articles. So it's important to talk about because it's an incredible feat of life that penguins are able to survive on the continent of Antarctica because most of the time it's pretty inhabitable, which just means a lot of life cannot survive there. Those penguins that are able to live there have a lot of adaptations that make it successful for them to live there, and it's important to talk about, but that sometimes leaves the penguins that are found in warmer climates not getting the type of attention that you might need to understand that penguins are found kind of all over the place. So these penguins are found on the coast of South Africa. They can actually be found on the beaches there and even up into Namibia. And then our Rockhopper penguins that are inside are found on the bottommost tip of South America in Argentina and Chile, which is why they are inside. Since they are found a little bit farther south, their building is going to be temperature regulated and it's kept anywhere between 45 degrees to 55 degrees depending on the time of year. But African black-footed penguins, which is who we're hanging out with right now while they're getting fed, are going to be found in a climate pretty similar to Texas, believe it or not. South Africa and Texas are about the same distance from the equator, which is why these guys are able to be outside year-round. They're used to warmer days, they're used to the cooler days that we get here in Texas, depending on the time of year. But when it is pretty hot in the summer, the penguins can rely on their water or different types of misters or go to the shade, and that is how they're going to regulate their body temperature and stay a little bit cooler if they need to on those hotter days, which is normal and what they would be doing out in their natural range on the beaches of South Africa. You can see right now that some of them are in the water swimming around and catching the fish that Jean is throwing in there for them. We like to promote natural behavior as much as possible here at the Fort Worth Zoo. And since penguins are going to be hunting only in the water, because that's where their food source lives, we want to make sure that we are giving them that opportunity to swim and hunt for their fish as well. The reason that you see Jean in there feeding the penguins, however, is just due to the fact that we want to make sure that our penguins are getting a good amount of food and we're able to monitor how much everyone is eating and when they are eating it. Because one of the best ways to tell if an animal is healthy or not feeling well is actually all going to relate to their diet and their appetite. Just like probably we as people don't feel the best and are not going to be eating a lot when we are not feeling great. It's similar for animals as well. If we notice that one of our penguins isn't taking food from our care staff, we can monitor them, make sure that they are feeling good, and if necessary, the vets can come check them out. But for the most part, our penguins are pretty excited about their food, as you can see. They are being offered a variety of different fish. They are being offered anchovies, capelin, and herring, because just like us people, we can be pretty picky about the food that we eat. Our penguins are also pretty picky, and they have a preference of which fish they like most, which is also important for Jean to monitor as well. We want to make sure that the penguins that like a specific type of fish are getting that choice to have the wide variety, but also making sure that they are getting a sustainable diet if they are choosing not to eat an anchovy or a capelin. The penguins are doing a little bit of swimming right now, you can see. And this is a great time to talk about their adaptations that make them successful hunters out in the oceans. If you look at their coloration, you might notice that they have white bellies and black backs. Now the reason for that is actually really important. They have those white bellies and the black backs to act as camouflage. Now you're probably thinking, what kind of camouflage do penguins need when they're swimming in the oceans, right? It's really important due to the fact that these guys are prey animals on top of being a predator species. It's important for the penguins to be able to camouflage with the ocean floor and the sky when they are swimming in the ocean. If their prey species is underneath them, the prey, if they look up above, they might not be able to see the penguin super well, because they're going to be blended in with the sky, like I just mentioned. And if their prey species is swimming below them or above them, they are going to look down and might not be able to see the penguin because they're blending in with that dark ocean floor. And that is really important for them to be able to be successful hunters and ensure their survival, because not only are they being camouflaged from their prey animals, they are also being camouflaged from predator species. Penguins have other adaptations to make them successful hunters in the ocean. One of those being their feathers. Penguins are a bird species, so they do have feathers like other birds that you might find in your neighborhood and might see flying in the sky. But they use their feathers a little bit differently than birds that can fly, because penguins cannot fly, but they can fly sort of in the water when they are swimming. It does look like they are flying, but their feathers are to protect them from the colder waters, and it helps insulate them and make sure that they are not being uncomfortable while they are swimming in the colder ocean temperatures in the waters. Here at the zoo, we keep our penguins' waters anywhere between 55 degrees to 65 degrees to help mimic that natural behavior and the natural temperature that they would be used to out in their habitats in their range in South Africa. And that way, when it does get a little bit warmer, they can go into the water if it does get hot, and they can swim around. Now they have around 300 feathers per square inch on their body, and that's to make sure that they are staying nice and insulated while they are swimming, they are staying warm while they are hunting, because hunting is going to be the main reason why they are getting into the water. Another adaptation that penguins have to be able to catch their fish super successfully is they have spiky mouth parts. Yes, you heard that correctly. They do have spiky parts on their tongue, and it's called papillae, and it's to make sure that when they catch a fish, that the fish cannot get away, and then they are able to push that fish back and swallow the fish whole. You might have noticed that with some of the penguins as they are being fed right now by Jean. They're just taking it from her and then pushing it back and swallowing it whole, because penguins don't have teeth like we do, but the papillae helps act like teeth to help secure that fish so they can be successful hunters. Now, if you look at the penguins right now as they're standing here, you might notice that their wings look like flippers, and that's a really good observation. They do have wings just like other birds do, but since they're not using them for flying in the sky, they have been modified and fused together to act like flippers to help propel themselves forward while they are swimming. Penguins can swim about 15 miles per hour as they are going through a chase and actively hunting. You can see some of our penguins when they are swimming, they're using those flippers, their wings, to propel themselves forward to be able to go after those fish. And it kind of looks like they're flying. And you might see some of them moving pretty quickly, which is really cool to see. Now the penguins also have another adaptation that they are able to do when they are swimming. They are able to hold their breath for 2 minutes, which when they're actively hunting those fish, it is really important for them to be able to stay under the water, to be able to catch those fish, and then be able to come up and take a breath of air. If the fish decides to swim straight down, they can actually go around 400 feet deep into the ocean after a fish, which is pretty remarkable, I think. Penguins do go through something called a molting period, which just means shedding. You might be more familiar with the word shedding, especially if you have any pets at home, like cats or dogs that shed. But molting is what birds go through when they drop or lose their feathers. And when the penguins do it, they actually do it all at once, which sometimes looks a little uncomfortable, looks a little patchy. But like I mentioned before, they have 300 feathers per square inch. So when they're losing all of their feathers, they're going to come out in these large patches, and penguins only molt once a year. So when they're molting, it takes about 3 weeks for the whole process to go from start to finish. And when that happens, they are not waterproof and they cannot swim. So when penguins are molting, they're going to be hanging out on land a good majority of the time, which means that they're not able to hunt. Since they only molt once a year, they usually go and they hunt and they eat a lot of fish before they start that molting process to make sure that they have enough fat build up so that they can drop all of these feathers, since they won't be hunting for about 3 weeks. But not to worry, since penguins only molt once a year, they only have to worry about it for that 3-week period, and then they don't have to worry about it for another about 11 months. Now, if you guys have just joined us, we are with our African black-footed penguins, and the African black-footed penguins are found on the coast of South Africa, and their name helps identify them, and you guys are able to look at them and notice that they have black feet. When birds are named, they are usually named after a behavior that they do or after some sort of coloration that they have, and that is how they are named. So our African black-footed penguins got their name due to those nice black speckly feet. If you've been to the Fort Worth Zoo, you've probably seen our Rockhopper penguins as well. They are found in our indoor building, and the reason they got their name, the Rockhopper penguin, is probably pretty easy to tell as well. They have this behavior that they do that they have determined is easier for them to move around the rocky beaches of Argentina and Chile, and it's hopping from rock to rock. And that's how you're going to be able to identify them and tell them apart. You can see our penguins, they are waddling right now, they're swimming, they're pretty active, mostly due to the fact that they are getting some snacks. They're getting part of their diet, which is going to be fish, because penguins are carnivores and they are a predator species. I don't know if you guys were able to hear that, but one of our penguins was actually making their vocalization, which is pretty interesting to be able to hear. Black-footed penguins make sort of a braying sound. If you're familiar with what a donkey sounds like, it kind of sounds like what a donkey sounds like when they make their vocalization, which was really cool to hear. I'm glad that one of them decided to do their vocalization for you guys. Now, penguins do face more threats than just that molting period that they go through, since they are vulnerable during that time. There's actually one in the water that looks like they're starting their molting period, if you're able to see it. But African black-footed penguins are one of the more endangered species of penguins. And around 100 years ago, there were 1.2 million black-footed penguins on the coast of South Africa and Namibia. Unfortunately, now though, there are only about 50,000 African black-footed penguins left. One of the biggest reasons for that is just due to their food source being overfished. So there are a couple things I'm going to tell you guys that you are able to do to help out penguins if you really, really love them, or even if you really like seafood. Penguins eat primarily fish, and we as people eat fish as well. Some people, I should say. And one thing that we are able to do at the grocery store to help out penguin species in general is to download this app on your smartphones called Seafood Watch. And Seafood Watch is going to be able to tell you where you can get sustainable seafood from, whether it's from a sustainable farming area or just sustainable fishing practices. You're going to be able to help out penguins and other types of animals that are found in our aquatic ecosystems that might eat the seafood that we like to eat. Another great thing that you are able to do if you really, really like penguins, I know there are a lot of penguin fans out there. I can't really blame you. I mean, look at that. That penguin is so cute. If you really like penguins, one thing that you can do to help them out, especially the ones here at the Fort Worth Zoo, is you can symbolically adopt one of our penguins. So just like Sylvia had talked about in her flamingo chat, you can adopt one of our penguins, and all of the proceeds from that will go directly into their care, and we are able to help make sure that these guys are living a healthy and happy life at the Fort Worth Zoo. Something else that you guys are actually doing right now, believe it or not, is just by tuning into our Facebook Live Keeper Chats, you are helping promote conservation for endangered animals, just because you are supporting a zoo that helps support different types of conservation projects around the world. By you tuning in, liking, sharing, asking questions, and helping promote the zoo, you are helping keep the spirit of conserving different endangered animals alive, like African black-footed penguins, gharials, black rhinos, or elephants. And we are so thankful that you guys have been tuning in to our chats and learning about conservation and learning about our animals that live here at the zoo. Now our feeding has ended and our penguins have gone back around to different parts of their habitat. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I'd love to answer them.
Can you talk about why some of them look patchy?
Yeah, of course. Some of our penguins are going through what is called a molting period. Birds shed their feathers and grow new ones in, but penguins go through a very specific type of molt. They're being very chatty. I hope you guys can hear them. But penguins go through something called a catastrophic molt. And what that just means is they drop all of their feathers all at once. And since they have 300 feathers per square inch on their body, it's going to look very patchy in certain areas. Now, the catastrophic molt only happens once a year, and it takes about 3 weeks from start to finish.
How fast can penguins swim?
Great question. African black-footed penguins can swim about 15 miles per hour.
What do they eat?
Here at the zoo, our penguins get a wide variety of fish because our penguins can be picky. Just like we can be picky at home with our foods that we eat, and we have favorite types of food, our penguins have favorite types of fish. We offer them capelin, herring, and anchovies.
And how can you tell them apart?
Great question. If you're looking at them, it might be a little bit difficult just for someone who doesn't see them every day to tell the differences. But our care staff is really great at recognizing different ones from other individuals because they might have different speckling on their bellies. But if they aren't able to see their speckling, they look at the bands on their wings. So our female penguins are going to have a colored band on their left wing, and our male penguins are going to have a colored band on their right wing.
And do penguins really mate for life?
That is a great question. Penguins are monogamous, but usually only during a certain breeding season, which just means that from their breeding season, from December to March, they will pair up with a certain individual penguin and stay with that penguin the entire breeding season. Now, it is entirely possible that the next breeding season they might pair up with a different penguin. Sometimes it has been documented that penguins pick the same pair for multiple breeding seasons in a row. So it just means that they are monogamous, but just during a certain breeding season.
And do they really offer their potential mates gifts, like a pebble?
That is a great question. It's also another common misconception. Not usually. Penguins will usually just find the penguin they think is going to provide them with the best offspring.
And why do penguins waddle?
Penguins waddle just due to the fact that their legs are a little bit shorter. You can see one coming up right here. Their legs are going to be built specifically for swimming. And since they're going to have those shorter legs, that's why their bodies kind of waddle a little bit. But those feet and those legs are built entirely for swimming, since that is how they are going to be doing a lot of their hunting.
And how much do penguins weigh?
African black-footed penguins weigh somewhere between 5 to 9 pounds. It depends on how much they have eaten that day or if they are going through a molt period.
And how deep can they swim?
Great question. These guys can actually swim about 400 feet deep going after certain prey animals.
Do they have hollow bones like other birds?
Yeah, that's a great question. Birds that fly, I should say, have hollow spaces in their bones to make sure that they are light enough to be able to fly. Since penguins don't fly in the air, their bones are actually going to be more solid, and their wing bones are actually fused together, and they are able to have those flippers to make sure that they are successful swimmers and able to catch their food. Great question.
How many eggs do they lay?
Typically, they only lay 1 egg at a time. There have been cases observed where they do lay 2 eggs, but usually it's just 1 egg at a time.
And do both parents raise the young?
Yeah, male and female penguins will help take care of their baby. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit different where one will be taking care of the baby and the other will be going out and doing some hunting for the parent that is hanging out with the chick.
And how many different penguin species are there?
Great question. Here at the Fort Worth Zoo, we have 2 different species of penguin, but in the entire world, there are 17 different types of penguins.
And do they get hot here in Texas?
That's a great question as well. As you probably are familiar with penguins, you recognize that some of them do live on the continent of Antarctica, but only 4 species live on the continent of Antarctica, whereas the rest are found on different continents in the southern hemisphere. Here at the zoo, our African black-footed penguins are outside due to the fact that Texas climate is very similar to their natural habitat that they are found. They might get hot on those extremely warm days, but the good news is their pool is kept at 55 degrees during the summer. If they get too hot, they'll get in the water or hang out in the shady spots.
How fast can they move on land?
I don't know specifically, not super fast just because they waddle. Our Rockhopper penguins can move pretty quickly because they have adapted to have this rock hopping behavior that they do while they are on land.
Can you train a penguin?
Great question. Here at the zoo, all training that we do is to help our keepers take better care of our animals by having the animals help participate in their care. Right now, we are training our penguins to hop onto a scale. That way we can make sure that they are maintaining a good and healthy weight.
And do penguins have any favorite treats here at the zoo?
I think they just prefer certain fish over another. I know some of our penguins aren't super huge fans of the anchovies, which is why we like to provide them with a wide variety of fish. Make sure that they are getting their favorite kind if they're not super into eating the anchovies that day.
And where are the rockhoppers found in the wild?
The Rockhopper penguins are going to be found on the southernmost tip of South America on the rocky beaches of Argentina and Chile.
And how do they communicate with one another?
They are going to communicate with that vocalization you might be able to hear. I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear it. I took a pause just because there was some vocalizing going on. So that braying is going to be how they talk to one another, whether it be for breeding purposes or just to communicate with one another. That's a great question.
And how long can penguins hold their breath?
Yeah, penguins can hold their breath for about 2 minutes.
And how deep can they swim or dive?
Yeah, great question. They can dive up to around 400 feet deep chasing after prey animals.
How tall do penguins get?
You can see right now this penguin right here is only a little over a foot tall, But there are species of penguin that can get up to about 4.5 to 5 feet, and that's the largest penguin species, which is going to be the emperor penguins.
And what's the smallest species?
Great question. The smallest species of penguin are the little blue penguins, and they are found in New Zealand. They are a little under a foot. They're very small.
How long can penguins live?
In zoos or in human care, they can live well past their natural life expectancy. Out in the wild, they can live anywhere between 10 to 15 years. In zoos, they can live into their 20s. And fun fact, one of our penguins here at the zoo, her name is Rico. She is 35 years old. And if you want to be able to find Rico when you guys come to the zoo, she has a yellow band on her left wing. It actually looks like she's swimming right here in the water.
And are these penguins endangered?
Great question. Unfortunately, these guys are endangered. They are one of the more endangered types of penguins. And one of the biggest reasons for them being endangered is just due to their food source being overfished. One way that you can help them out if you like seafood is downloading this app called Seafood Watch, and you can figure out different types of seafood that is going to be sustainable, and you're going to be helping out penguins and other aquatic wildlife that require fish and different types of seafood to be able to survive out in their natural range.
And do penguins hibernate?
That's a great question. Penguins don't necessarily hibernate like you might think. Some penguin species will migrate to different areas of the world depending on the time of year. For example, the 4 species of penguin found on Antarctica live there year-round, but there are a couple species that will actually migrate to Antarctica to live there for a period of time. Great question.
And how do they build nests?
That's a great question, and for all of our kids out there, you might think this is kind of funny, but African black-footed penguins build their nests out of their poop. They will go to the bathroom a lot and then start to build up their nests while also putting rocks around it to help ensure that it is going to be stable.
And is there a way that the zoo is involved in penguin conservation?
Yeah, what we are involved in is something called the SSP. What the SSP stands for is called the Species Survival Plan. Now I know Sylvia talked a little bit about it in her flamingo chat, but for those that might not have seen that one yet, we can go into a little bit more detail. Now the Species Survival Plan is put in place for all animals that are endangered to monitor the genetics of the animals in human care, and we will figure out which animals put together will create a good genetically stable and variable population in human care, so in zoos, especially in the United States. And we participate in that by having the penguins here and making sure we monitor the genetics of the penguins that live here and making sure the penguins that do pair up during breeding season are going to be ones that would create a genetically stable population if they were to go extinct out in the wild.
And last question, what can we do at home to help penguins?
Great question. Honestly, you are doing something right now. Just by watching and supporting the zoo while we are going through this time where we are not open to the public and sharing with your friends, that is helping raise awareness about these animals because some people don't know that they are endangered. Another great thing that you can do, I mentioned you could download Seafood Watch. That's going to help you, pausing for a cart, that's going to help you figure out more sustainable ways to buy your seafood. That's going to help out aquatic wildlife. And you could symbolically adopt any of our animals here at the zoo if you have a preference to help protect them. But like I said, awareness is a really big part of conservation, helping spread awareness about endangered animals that most people might not know that they are endangered is going to be huge. So you guys liking our posts, asking questions, sharing them is really important. And I actually have a really fun fact for you guys. Tomorrow is World Penguin Day. I'm so happy that I got to do this chat with you guys today so you could learn more about penguins and help spread awareness about penguins tomorrow on World Penguin Day. And since that was our last question, I want to get into our activity that I have for you all. If you have been tuning into our Facebook Lives, we've had a couple of our other keeper staff and our other interpretive specialists task you with some type of activity to go out and check out the wildlife in your backyard, maybe at a park safely. And some of that was about defense and about their teeth. I want you guys to go out in your backyard and look for animals that have counter shading. Remember, I talked about penguins having counter shading, which is a black back and a white belly to help protect them and hide them from their prey and their predators. And I gave a couple examples of other animals you won't be able to find in your backyard to help make it a little bit more difficult. But I want you guys to go out and find animals that have counter shading in your backyard and post it to our zoo social media. Maybe send it into an email that you guys can find on our website so we can see how you guys are interacting with wildlife safely in your backyards during this quarantine. Now, I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy during this time. We miss you here at the zoo. We are so excited for the zoo to open back up in the future so that you guys can come out and see our penguins. You can come out and see our Rockhopper penguins inside. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for tuning in.